Good day, honorable members. I assume we are ready to start. As many? The chair recognizes the honorable member for Long Island.
Mr. Deputy, thank you for acknowledgement. Mr. Deputy, I rise on behalf of the great people, the great and hard-working people of Long Island, to represent their interests and stand as their voice once again in these hallowed halls. Mr. Deputy, it is an honor and a privilege to serve the interests of my home people, the people from whence I came. Mr. Deputy, I begin by extending condolences to the family of Mr. Eddie Burrows of Deadmansfield, Long Island. Mr. Burrows was a great supporter and someone who I always looked forward to seeing. He was, as we say, one way all the time. To his daughter, Rima Martin, and the entire family, my sympathies. I also wish to extend condolences to the family of Mr. Dolores Taylor of Hard Bargain, her children, Curtis Cartwright, Patricia Taylor, Agatha Miller, Lillian Taylor, Gregory Taylor, and Joseph Taylor, and also to the family of Miss Dorothy Miller of McCann's, a phenomenal cook and businesswoman, to her children and her wider family. And then, of course, to the family of Mr. Vincent Wells, his sister Ruth Knowles, and family, and the family of Mr. John Patrick Cartwright of Hamilton's, Long Island, to Lil Pat, and the entire family, I extend my condolences. Mr. Deputy, recently it came to my attention that Mr. Cedric Scott, gentleman who was the honorary consul in LA, Mr. Cedric Scott, the gentleman who was the honorary consul in LA, he was appointed as ambassador to Japan. So I wish to congratulate him on his appointment. No, he's yeah, I went to Thailand in 2019, and he did such a phenomenal job, with assisting, because I went to California. So, Mr. Scott, congratulations. Mr. Speaker, this is an unimaginative budget. It lacks innovation. This is a do-nothing budget. It's a placeholder. This is not a budget worthy of the 50th year of independence. There are no promised or significant highlights. The theme of this budget, Mr. Deputy, should be tax and spend and fees again. Mr. Deputy, thus far, notwithstanding that the government has been in office for 2 years, we continue to hear blaming and finger-pointing, misleading statements and accusations, and stale rhetoric. Bahamians are hearing no stories. Bahamians ain't hearing any stories of lockdowns anymore. They want to know, what have you done for me lately? In this budget, we see some revisionist history as well, as the government trot out repackaged F&M programs. For example, the National Breakfast Program, which was an F&M campaign promise, and the National Food Program. Mr. Deputy, contrary to the government's claims, July 1st, 2023 will be a new day of new taxes. It will be a new fiscal year of new taxes. Taxes, which we now call fees or some other word, because the word tax is tantamount to an obscenity in certain circles. This is a subversive tactic to pull the wool over the people's eyes. But we know these are taxes, no matter what you call them. They're taxes. Whether you call them fees, fee for service, whatever cute language, it's taxes. And the public should know that it is all one and the same. This budget represents much of the same old. And it's a budget laced, Mr. Deputy, with sneaky hidden taxes. You see sneaky taxes buried in big bundles of documents and lots of paper, all while the government pretends to not be raising and/or implementing new taxes. I accept that the government is benefiting from a time of growth globally, from the pandemic rebound. But nothing magical has been done. Mr. Deputy, before I continue, I want to note, though, that I do support the amendment to the Family Island Encouragement Act. I am pleased to see that this is extended to all of the family islands. Now, while all construction items are duty-free. I think that the government should have also thrown in furnishings for family islanders. These too should have been duty-free. The first inventory of a business should also be duty-free, much like the previous government did. And that should include duty-free exemptions on vehicles for family island businesses, whether they are transport vans, trucks, or cars. As a family island boy, I also support the agricultural, sales, and services bill. My only query relates to the high cost of cattle, which range in cost from $700 to $1,200 per animal, and rams and ewes, which range in cost from $150 to $350 per animal. This could perhaps be revisited. What are these costs based on? And of course, will the equipment be sent to the family islands for pens, for the hole drilling, for the fence posts, for the disking of the farm land, and the ridging? And then, of course, Mr. Deputy, I support the increase, the amount, or the amendment. I support the amendment in the constituency capital grant. The increase is much, much needed and has my full support, and I think most of us in here would agree. Mr. Deputy, in a nutshell, the social services budget has been decreased. VAT remains on medication and insurance and on baby food and feminine products. The Public Hospitals Authority, which I am reliably told is already underfunded to the tune of some 30 to 50 million per year, also saw a $10 million budget decrease. Why would anyone reduce the subvention to major health facilities, particularly during a time when people are complaining about the quality of the health care being delivered? We also see a cut to the public service budget. And interestingly, there's a humongous outlay, to the tune of some $60 million to pay consultants. Mr. Deputy, how many consultants are in the government today? How many consultant firms? And what are the contract values? What are these people's qualifications? What qualifies them to be a part of a think tank? Are there studies being done? Are there reports being manufactured? What are they consulting on? Will some of the crime consultants' contracts be renewed this fiscal year? What are ambassadors at large? What is that? While we drop in holes and craters in Long Island, 16.1 million is allocated for travel and 5.2 million for revelry. Mr. Deputy, harbor dues are increasing. Port Authority dues are increasing. And let's be real, these fees will impact the cost of imports, whether they are paid by a Bahamian ship or not. And these costs will be passed on to consumers. And now, for the second year in a row, we see increases to the road traffic fees. We now hear of a new $50 fee for a so-called license record. Mr. Deputy, I have repeatedly questioned why VAT is charged on customs duties. Why tax a tax? This is double taxation. Why continue to put that burden in the backs of the public? Customs with VAT on top is simply wrong and onerous on the backs of the public. How is it fair to pay 45% for customs in some instances, then another 10% for VAT on the 45%, and then customs fees, and then environmental fees, environmental levies? And this does not include shipping and transport fees, or even the broker's costs. Moreover, Mr. Deputy, why are customs trucking and daily storage rates so excessively high? Mr. Deputy, this budget sees increases to passenger taxes. Inter-island travel is far too expensive as is. It costs less to travel to the United States, in some instances, than to travel to some of our family islands. What are the grounds for these increasing taxes? And how will these fees dampen air traffic into the islands? How will they impact tourism? Both tourists and residents will be hit by these taxes. Your plane tickets will now increase Bahamians yet again. And it's already super expensive to fly within the Bahamas. Mr. Deputy, Bahamians are also on board cruises traveling to Bahamian stops. Frankly, these costs can also lend to dampening in revenue. What studies guided the decision here? Were these fees just arbitrarily raised? Has the Caribbean Tourism Organization been involved? Was there any consultation undertaken with the Florida Cruise Line Association? Has there been proper consultation with all the stakeholders with this lend to continued growth in the industry? They say no taxes. But what is this? Mr. Deputy, this tax will impact Bahamians, their travel, and local businesses that are involved in the industry. With this budget, we are seeing an increase in the cap relative to how much taxes condominium hotels are liable for. Let's be real, this too is a tax increase, and Bahamians also own condominium hotels. So who says that taxes are less offensive if foreigners are the only ones being taxed? Why does the government believe that? Let's be real. These particular taxes will directly and indirectly impact Bahamian families and businesses. The wider economy will be impacted. Mr. Deputy, the VAT amendments appear to be going after vacation home rentals. The law is now being changed to make VAT payable on rentals, whether they are on a website or not. And anyone making more than $100,000 per year must mandatorily register. Contrary to the government's claim of no new taxes, this will affect local travel, and this will directly affect Bahamians. In recent months, the government encouraged Bahamians to register their rentals. In hindsight, that was clearly in an effort to tax you. Mr. Deputy, the previous position was that the VAT would be paid by Airbnb to the government via its platform. Now the responsibility for payment will be on the individual owner. So this is yet another burden that will be added to people trying to have a side hustle to pay their real property tax or mortgage or their children's college fees. What's more, the Department of Inland Revenue will now have to take on the difficult task of going after every individual owner of vacation rentals for them to become compliant, when websites like Airbnb were the large taxpayer, and they would take the funds up front and then pay the government. More red tape, more bureaucracy, and yet another attempt at hiding a direct tax on small business people trying to make a living. Here again, the government is reaching into your pockets and disincentivizing Bahamians. Tax and spend and fees again. Mr. Deputy, will there be a back-to-school VAT holiday and a hurricane preparation VAT holiday? We are right now in hurricane season and back to school is coming up. We haven't heard anything about that. Will those holidays happen, those tax holidays? We've all seen the warnings from the Department of Inland Revenue in the newspapers, threatening to seize and sell off people's properties with tax arrears or to seize the bank accounts of businesses. I think that the Department of Inland Revenue must rethink those approaches and implement a more humane approach that perhaps over time could arrive at the point where they are now. But certainly, they should not be employed as an immediate action. Mr. Deputy, the Tourism Development Corporation Bill, which is also among the compendium of bills being advanced in this budget, should be separately debated. It is quite detailed and should not be subsumed under this budget. Interestingly, though, this bill now introduces a tourism development fee, an additional tax that must now be paid, Mr. Deputy, another tax. So, Mr. Deputy, the Business License Bill, which would enact a new Business License Act, appears, in my estimation, to give the Financial Secretary, that is the office itself, as opposed to the person, far too much power. This ascribes judicial powers to the Financial Secretary. In such a small society, where many such appointments are political in nature, how are persons guaranteed fairness and a fair process? A bipartisan approach should be taken to that, or even the appointment of that office. What's more, Bahamians seeking to start a business will now have to apply, get this, in writing, to reserve their business name, or even to change the business name, and guess what? You will even now have to pay a $25 fee to reserve your trading name. Previously, as it relates to persons just seeking, that was reserved for just companies. But previously now, for those who were just seeking a business license, a trading name, that was free. More slick taxes and red tape that deepens bureaucracy and does not create a business-friendly environment. Mr. Deputy, who will make up the Tax Appeal Commission? Political appointees, right? The implication at Section 17E of the new Business License, or the proposed Business License Act, the bill, is that a business person owing tax, but you could infer this, but this person, let's say, is experiencing some financial challenges, would not be able to operate or get a new business license without paying all of the outstanding fees owed. This is not friendly to business or to the poor. How does this budget lend to the ease of doing business in the Bahamas? Mr. Deputy, given the commentary of some in here and elsewhere, one must be careful that some aspects of this budget and the accompanying bills are not seen as being openly discriminatory and anti-foreign direct investment. With all these increases and slick taxes to meet its budget projections, this New Day government seems fully prepared to drive the middle class into poverty, knowing full well that it's the middle class that drives and grows the economy. Mr. Deputy, we often listened as this New Day government demonized the former administration for increasing VAT and warned the country that if the F&M was re-elected, that there would be more taxes and increases in taxes. And here we have the New Day government doing what they warned the Bahamas about the F&M, increasing taxes unrelentingly at each and every chance they get. Mr. Deputy, yes, it is a new day, but is it a better day? No, sir. Let's be real. The government has admitted that they collected $110 million in VAT over the last fiscal year. More dollars. Well, that is in large part from their taxing of the poor on breadbasket items. How else do you reduce VAT to 10%, but still collect more money than when it was at 12%? Mr. Deputy, given the budget communication and the pronouncements about Long Island, it is clear that Long Island was more prosperous under the Minnis administration during COVID in 2020 and 2021 than under the New Day government. I'll come into that. Shockingly, Long Island's GDP growth declined by 10% in 2022 than where it was in the previous year, 2021. We ensured Long Island's care and sustainability even during the time of COVID, and certainly before. Mr. Deputy, we have lots of work. We had lots of work going on in Long Island. Lots of work was projected for Long Island. We had waterworks to begin in North End, Long Island, at the time of the election. We had gained the approvals from the independent engineering consultants in Jamaica. The field work was already done, and we were awaiting final sign-off from the Caribbean Development Bank for issuance of tender documents. These works appear to have been completely scuttled and the monies redirected elsewhere. Mr. Deputy, the Long Island International Airport had been tendered. The bids and determinations were made. All the groundwork was done, from the surveys, the architectural renderings, to the environmental impact assessment report, to other technical plans. We have heard nothing about the process since. And then there were plans to incrementally repave and build roads in Long Island. All these projects would have spurred on the economy and kept things afloat. During our time in office, we embarked upon various infrastructural undertakings, from major waterworks to roadworks, to bridges, to bus shelters, to school repairs, and other building repairs, and various other projects. What's more, folks were making a good salary and spending all or part of it right in Long Island. So, Mr. Deputy, yes, the economic contraction is due to the PLP government, its policies, the stoppage of work that was happening or earmarked for Long Island. That work was resulting in house rentals, more people buying food at stores and patronizing restaurants, car rentals, and various local expenses. The locals had job opportunities and could rent their buildings and homes, could provide food for their tables, could provide food for the workers. Many of them had jobs too. We had a lot of work going on in Long Island. When the work stopped, so did the jobs. Had the projects that we had lined up gone through and been continued, when the government changed, as opposed to being stopped, reviewed, and canceled, Long Island's economy would have grown by perhaps 20 to 25%. This government has been disastrous for the Family Islands. We've now been told of the 2022 decline in GDP for Long Island, and 7 other Family Islands, Grand Bahama, Abaco, Maguana, Inagua, Crooked Island, Acklins, and Eleuthera, all saw a reduction in GDP growth. All saw a reduction in GDP growth under PLP governance. With all this contracting of Family Island economies, the question must be asked, is this government truly Family Island friendly? They won nearly every seat on the Family Islands, yet multiple islands, 7 to be exact, 7 seats here in this instance that they won have seen an economic decline in the first 18 months, their first 18 months in office. Where are the major investments in Family Island infrastructure? Mr. Deputy, this is most disastrous for my people. These actions and policies have caused a downturn in Long Island. They did that. Mr. Deputy, the government claims that they lowered VAT to 10% to bring relief. But this has really resulted in the pulling of more money out of the pockets of poor Bahamians by putting VAT on bread basket items and prescription drugs that Bahamians need to survive. Mr. Deputy, the government gave the public the impression that they were lowering VAT for the poor, that they increased the minimum wage to supposedly help the poor. But get this, they then turned around and took it all back by increasing VAT by 100% on bread basket items, baby formula, insurance, and medicine. And guess what else they do to take it back? They increase road traffic fees. I mean, I remember having to pay the licensed SDs for 2 and 3 years, as opposed to the government exempting that. I'm sure many had to. Then you had increases in franchise costs, increases in inspection costs, costs that are prohibitive to business. This is road traffic. Now they are increasing airline, or applying a tax that will increase in airline and cruise tickets for when you travel. There's increased tax to water sports operators, increased real property taxes. VAT on BPL has affected all aspects of the economy because businesses now pass those costs on to consumers. And now some Bahamians can hardly keep their light on, and many Bahamians go into bed every night in darkness using candle. Due to the new day PLP, your BPL bill has increased anywhere from 12.12% to 18.45%, depending on your consumption this month. Since the New Day government came to office, there's been a 76.19% increase for fuel under the 800 kilowatt hour fuel usage for those who use under 800 kilowatt hour of power. This New Day is rough, Mr. Deputy. Now the government is taxing small entrepreneurs who are trying to make a living from their Airbnbs, taking money off what people, of taking monies away from Bahamians who are trying to get a foothold in the industry. So the hand that give it also took it away. The only thing left for them to do is tax the dead. Mr. Deputy, if the government is cutting the subvention to WSC by $18 million, will that result in WSC having to raise rates to increase revenue? How will the water bills that come from consolidated water and the other we voice osmosis providers be paid. The New Day government has increased the cost of living in the Bahamas. The economic disruption has been caused via bad economic policies, and it's unconscionable. What and where is the relief offered to consumers or entrepreneurs to combat the impact of inflation and rising costs? What relief has been offered to wholesalers and retailers, particularly those with margin-controlled businesses, to mitigate against layoffs? Mr. Deputy, as we peruse this budget, as I went through the budget, I didn't see any mention of the carbon credit initiative in this budget. We know that was talked up in the last budget, and I was very excited about that. I'm still excited about that. By all accounts, we ought to be receiving revenue from that by now. Wasn't it supposed or projected to happen within the first quarter of this year, 2023? True. Mr. Deputy, this budget offers little that would suggest a shift from the archaic economic model. Little that could be a catalyst for new investment and development. Mr. Deputy, there's nothing significant in terms of social relief. Why are we paying volunteers for youth programs? And how does this correlate with existing programs that offer such services? School programs, church and civic organizations, etc. Teachers that offer after-school activities, or have after-school activities. So what is this paid volunteer program? What is that, a paid volunteer? What's it supposed to be? And is it value for money? What's the objective? Despite safety and security being one of the themes of the budget, what significant safety and security undertaking is being reflected beyond the usual mentions? In Tuesday's Tribune, realtors expressed concern over the inconsistency of tax policies. The government now moves to increase fees on land sales from Bahamians to foreigners. Now, VAT is different depending on if one is selling to a Bahamian or if one is selling to a foreigner. Why weren't the stakeholders, the realtors and others in that marketplace, why weren't they consulted beforehand? Why were they in newspapers saying they don't know anything about this, complaining about the tax structure changing every year, the inconsistency in the tax policy? So, Mr. Deputy, there's much to be desired. I also want to say, Mr. Deputy, that I believe that there's a need for greater consumer protection in the Bahamas. More inspectors must be deployed on the ground. There's a need for greater intervention as it relates to bank interest fees. These rates are ridiculous and unacceptable and abusive. I agree. The salaries in the public sector should be evaluated. That's long overdue. Certainly, the current salaries are not equitable. And you know what else, Mr. Deputy? I believe that we should move to implement a national lottery. I'd like to see that. Bahamians should not be discriminated against in this country as relates to going into casinos. So when I saw Dr. Donnie Johnson's comments, I supported that. I think that that should be seriously considered. I would support that. There should be no discrimination against Bahamians in our own country. But I do see the value of moving towards and implementing a national lottery. Mr. Deputy, as I stated earlier, we have serious economic challenges in Long Island. The economy in Long Island has contracted by 10%, by the government's own admission, due to their policies. Our economy is barely moving. Thank God for fishermen and the fishing industry. Thank God for public service jobs. We need new investment. We need new infrastructure. We need improvement on the infrastructure in Long Island. Mr. Deputy, in Long Island, you know, when you drive on the roads, you got to play a game of duck a hole or duck a crater. Enough is enough. All those who visited Long Island for the regatta now know the plight we Long Islanders face. And they all now see why I've been begging and pleading in this place for the roads to be fixed, for the potholes to be patched, and for paving works. How much longer must we endure this? How much longer? Over the last 20 months, the roads in Long Island have deteriorated to a level that is simply unacceptable. Driving in Long Island has become a nightmarish experience. During the course of that time, I've been meeting and here, using this platform to plead with the government to ensure that the potholes are patched before the roadway entirely deteriorates. Requesting that the government ensures that the road in the north is paved by the contractor who, quite frankly, has had more than adequate time to complete that project. To provide and or hire a Ministry of Works officer for Long Island to mitigate against the deterioration of our public infrastructure and to ensure that these issues are immediately addressed. Public infrastructure requires consistent and constant maintenance, Mr. Deputy. As such, we are perplexed as to how over the last 20 months, little to no effort has been put into ensuring that Long Island's infrastructure is up to par. What is the government waiting for? Unfortunately, beyond empty promises and lip service, we've seen little to no response on the ground. Mr. Deputy, we are losing our vehicles due to the state of the roads. We are incurring incalculable damage to the undercarriage, the extension, the tires and rims, and other parts of our vehicles, the shocks and springs. This cannot continue. Every week people send it to Nassau on the mailboat to get tires and other parts for vehicles. Accidents have become commonplace as a result of the state of affairs.
The chair recognizes the honorable member for South Beach.
Deputy Speaker, I believe the member is being disingenuous with regards to road work and infrastructure in Long Island. The member was on site when the Minister of Works declared and mentioned that there was indeed a contract in the advanced stages with regards for the repair of almost 90 miles of road in Long Island. He also is well aware that there is a contractor involved in Long Island at this present time doing road work. The member must remember that over the last, in the last administration, him being the member for Long Island, he is aware that the roads have not deteriorated in 20 months. Those roads have been bad for quite some time. And during the last administration, they struggled to get the road repairs as well. So it's happening. The member must be fair. Please.
Thank you, honorable member.
Mr. Deputy, my good cousin from South Beach, my good cousin, I know you had to do what you had to do, but the reality is this. The reality is this, Mr. Deputy. The roads have deteriorated over the last 20 months. That's a fact. Ask anybody who lives in Long Island. I can speak to this firsthand, and there are others who can speak to this firsthand. Okay? And announcing road works has nothing to do with the fact that over the last 20 months, there has been little to nothing done, despite my pleas in this place, for road works, for patching to happen in Long Island. Announcing something that is futuristic has nothing to do with now and what was over the last 20 months. And so, Mr. Deputy, we Long Islanders are tired of ducking and diving as we drive on the roads. We're tired of falling into trenches and craters. Recently, our island nearly lost a young teacher as she made her way to school. You don't know why? A pothole. The pothole-laden road, trying to duck and dive, trying to avoid potholes. Does the Ministry of Works still have a hotline for potholes or pot craters? I know that persons were able previously to be compensated for any damage to their vehicles caused by potholes. Is that hotline still existent? Whilst the government thinks it fit to rename a section of the main road and this is what the member for South Beach was speaking to. Yeah, the road was renamed. Yes, they did say sometime into the future there's going to be some road work starting, but we're talking about now. But whilst I think it fit to rename a section of the road, they should also prioritize paving and repairing the road. People got to drive on that road now every day. As a business person in the car rental industry, I know firsthand the great losses and expenses that the state of the roads have caused. Who will compensate my constituents for the losses being incurred due to the neglect of the roads in Long Island? How difficult is it for the government to send adequate coal patch consistently and hire persons to patch potholes or pot craters? Why is the government not moved to address the state of the roads by paving the already scarified roads in the north and paving additional swaths of bad road? Look, as it relates to the road in the north, I repeatedly said I'm not pleased with what has happened there. I was recently advised that a barge was sitting offshore in Clarencetown with aggregate to complete that roadway. But that was weeks ago, more than maybe a month and a half ago now. And frankly, more than enough time has passed for that material to have been offloaded and the work to have been done or progressing in that part of the island.
20 months again.
So I call upon the government to deploy Ministry of Works officials to conduct an urgent inspection of Long Island's roads and to immediately contract pavers to fix this crisis we are now facing. Enough is enough. We pay taxes like everyone else. I see no reason why our people are forsaken or neglected and made to suffer in these most unfortunate and neglectful conditions. Mr. Deputy, we also have issues as it relates to drainage wells and culverts. The flooding of these roads, flooding of properties. Water run right off the road and somebody can't get out their house door. We have flooding in areas. You're in the government, man, fix it. You got elected, fix it. We in opposition. We in opposition, you in government. The flooding of the roads, Mr. Deputy. The flooding of the roads, Mr. Deputy. And the flooding of properties, particularly in areas like Scrub Hill, Hamilton's area, Clinton's, Pindus, Deadman's Key, Stella Maris, needs to be urgently addressed. Any heavy downpour and the entire roadway is flooded. Mr. Deputy, we need that airport in Long Island. That Long Island International Airport in Deadman's Key. We need that. We need that.
Get him and let him come help Long Island.
Mr. Deputy, we also need a price control officer in Long Island. I was talking to Mr. Keith Fox last night, and he said, when you get to the house today, mention that we need a price control officer in Long Island. We need a tax collections officer. I mean, the reality is, and I'm speaking more particularly about second homeowners, there's a lot of real property tax outstanding in Long Island. Right? In Long Island. We need immigration officers. And I hope that my former lecturer, Member for Carmichael, who I call Mr. Bell, would help me with
35
some
years.
immigration officers.
35 years.
And so, the Member for Carmichael, remember your student, man. I need 2 immigration officers at the very least. I know you also lectured my colleague in the back there, Marathon. Mr. Deputy, the waterworks that was to be undertaken in Long Island, in Millis, McCann's, Sam McKinnon's, we sent the pipes up for that work to be done. The roadside was cleared by Mr. Brenville Miller for the pipes to be laid. But my brother, government is continuous, eh? And guess what? We only had 4.5 years. You do the rest. You do the rest. You do the rest. You do the rest. And so, Mr. Deputy, Millis, McCann's, Sam McKinnon's, we had the pipes in Long Island for those works to be undertaken. The roadside was cleared. I believe that a trencher may or may not have been sent, but I know certainly the pipes were there. And there was an in-house team set up to go down there and undertake those works. And we would hope that that community would have that work completed, because everything was already set.
Can't stand another 20 months.
Mr. Deputy, as related to that
Can't survive another
Caribbean Development Bank contract for works to be done between Bank Ground, Seymour's area, and North End Long Island. We're hoping to see that contract manifest itself, that we can still get that project to happen in North End Long Island. We know where it was, and we note that since then, in 2 years, we haven't seen anything.
20 months?
Mr. Deputy, I also have concerns with respect to the water quality, how the water is suddenly going off in Long Island. Part of Central and Sims are constantly off or experiencing low pressure. Okay? Why is this happening all of a sudden? And the new water plant, is that plant not on in McKinsey's? Is the new water tank that was built in McKinsey's, is that fully operational? Is that operational at all? Are they just sitting there being allowed to rot? Are they in use? You know, Mr. Deputy, we hear a lot of talk in this budget about hospitals and upgraded clinics. On the Long Island community clinics, we've been hearing about proposed works now for some time. When will these proposed works start? Who got the contracts for these works? I'm hearing the contracts were issued, so we'd like to see them just start the work. These works were promised in the 2022 midterm budget, in the 2022 budget, in the 2023 midterm budget, and now they're promising again in the 2023 budget. We're tired of the promises. We want results, and we want it now. Mr. Deputy, I vividly recall an IDB loan being taken out for works to the Deadman Ski Clinic under the last administration, and the monies were already allocated. And the question is, what has happened? That would have resulted in that clinic being renovated, a new ambulance, and a properly outfitted lab. Recently, I attempted to give away an ambulance that we had donated. We ran into some challenges and were told that they couldn't accept it. So what we're going to do now, as I had spoken to the minister before, I'm going to prepare a letter. I'm going to send him a letter, send the PS a letter, and hopefully the government can sign off on this donation being accepted by the clinic, the Sims Clinic in Long Island. Mr. Deputy, Mr. Deputy, I heard about solarization. Government has a solar program. Government says they're investing some $22 million in solar in the Southern Islands. But you know what I didn't hear? I didn't hear Long Island. Long Island wasn't mentioned. We want solar in Long Island too. We have a lot of space in Long Island, and we could incorporate solar. We're one of the islands to the Bahamas as well. One of the islands that could be considered in the southern Bahamas. And we would like to be considered for some of this $22 million that would be put towards solarizing or putting some solar installations on these islands. Mr. Deputy, we've had a challenge on the island with police vehicles. We understand the government has gotten some new trucks, but we need trucks and jeeps for Long Island. I want to commend Superintendent McGregor, who's done a yeoman's job holding it together, because frankly, there are no vehicles, no police vehicles in North Long Island. And major foreign and locally owned business houses have been calling and complaining. And they've asked me not to call their name for fear of victimization. But I want to note that this is pressing for us, getting these police vehicles in Long Island. And since I saw a photo with, I think it's the police commissioner on a motorbike, we'd like to have a police bike in Long Island too. You know? So, but I want to commend the Long Island police for being able to work under these conditions and perform their jobs. You know? Yeah, we might need a hovercraft given the conditions of those roads. But, Mr. Deputy, police reservists have also mentioned to me that they haven't received any increase or promotion pay. since they've gotten it, I saw a letter from one of them that was given to this particular individual, giving them a promotion. I wouldn't say what the promotion is or their gender, because it might identify them, a year or two or so ago. And they've complained that they have not received the requisite pay for the promotion that they now have, and that there's some back pay owing, and I call upon the government to assist with resolving that to police reservists, particularly the reservists of the Great Island, of Long Island. Mr. Deputy, Bahamas Air comes to Long Island every day. We love Bahamas Air. Long Island people love Bahamas, I might as well tell you. But one of the issues we have is that our Long Islanders, we could fill a Bahamas Air daily flight sometimes twice a day. But the one flight that comes to us is shared with San Salvador. That is a challenge for us. Persons are usually unable to get on. It's hampering our tourism market. It's hampering local travel. And I was told by Bahamas Air that given the load factor, that only 19 of those seats are reserved for Long Island, and the other 19 for San Salvador, because there's a hill in Long Island. They don't like to bring the planes full. So, and the runway is short. So we need our own designated aircraft. We could put some 38 or so passengers on there ourselves every day. So I call upon the powers that be to disentangle Long Island from the San Salvador route and provide us with our own Bahamas Air flight into Long Island. Mr. Deputy, with respect to second homeowners on the island, we know that homes on these islands are now being used as semi-hotels. We've heard of, the Chief Counsel and I always have discussed this, breaking of codes by building townhouses and condos on the properties, and you don't even know that the extra construction is there. We've heard of persons coming and without proper approvals, competing with locals. We know of car rentals. And I'm grateful for this new road traffic amendment as it relates to persons not being able to rent their personal cars or a car attached to a Airbnb. You know why I'm grateful? I'm in the business, my brother. I'll be frank with you. And I'm grateful for those others who are in the business who have been undercut for many years. Okay? Because you have persons who are second homeowners and others who rent the place, rent a car. Some got 5 and 6 cars for each one of their apartments or spaces. And so, Mr. Deputy, these new amendments to the road traffic should cover those second homeowners who like to rent out blue plate vehicles in competition with persons who are paying their dues and fees to be in the vehicle rental business. Any islander observing this happening after the 1st of July must report them. I call upon you to do so. Mr. Deputy, in Long Island, we continue to have challenges with banking. We have one Scotia ATM machine in Buckley's. But there's a need for a brick and mortar bank. I've been pleading and asking and begging for years for the Bank of the Bahamas to come to Long Island. And I've done so here on multiple occasions. You got the Bank of the Bahamas in Kemps Bay and Fresh Creek, I think. But I know in Kemps Bay for sure. No, it's Mangrove Key. I also think they're in Mangrove Key. They're not in Mangrove Key? I know that they are in Kemps Bay. I know that they're in San Salvador, and I know they're in Inagua. And I believe they are in Mangrove Key. And I can tell you that Long Island has a bigger population than all of those places, and certainly a bigger business community. So we are asking for the Bank of the Bahamas to come to Long Island. It's urgently needed. I'm also hoping that my good friend, the member from Angleton, bless me with a special education teacher this year, this new school year, September 2023, because we do have some serious special education challenges. and needs on the island. Mr. Deputy, I understand, during the administration, we put in place the passport office, and that office was situated in the commissioner's office, the administrator's office. So we would be grateful if now we can expand on that and open at least one or two separate satellite offices. Because you know, Long Island is a very long place. Someone asked me, say, man, to talk to me about places being far now. So I said, no place is far from me in New Providence. It's only the traffic that's the problem. But I'm hopeful that a passport office would be opened in a central location, or maybe two satellite offices open, one in the south and one in the north, for convenience of the islanders. We hear about the distribution or the issuance of Crown land. We hear about the expansion of Family Island or affordable housing, on the Family Islands. Does this include Long Island? And what is the threshold for affordable housing? Mr. Deputy, I commend the member for South and Central Eleuthera on the proposed Family Islands help desk. Much needed. Let's hope that that can yield the results that we want as Family Islanders. I also commend him for this Golden Yoke program, and I am hopeful that this would be extended to Long Island. My grandfather had a chicken farm, and now at 89 years old, I see him restarting, right? Saw him restarting recently. So he's getting into chicken, you know, but with egg prices now falling, let's ensure that the Golden Yoke program does not go the way of Bartard and the Hatchet Bay farms, etc. Government will have to support farmers with subsidies and to be consistent in supporting a competitive price. We don't want to have a false marketplace either, propped up by tariffs and all of that. We want real competition, and we want farmers to be able to be successful if they are to be a part of this program. Mr. Deputy, my fishermen have been telling me about sharks, shark attacks, and asking, said, man, you know, what about culling sharks? What about the government thinking to give the fishermen a month or two to go out and hunt sharks, cut back on the numbers? That is something that I think should be considered, you know, because the amount of sharks in the waters of the Bahamas and shark attacks that we are now hearing of, it's a serious issue. Mr. Deputy, some of the infrastructure we need in Long Island, beyond roads, beyond the airport, beyond some of the other mentions previously, we need seawalls, additional seawalls. It's hurricane season. We'd like to be considered for additional seawalls at the very lowest elevations on the island. We'd like to see the Clarencetown dock dredged. I think it's important that the dock is dredged. That same boat that I was mentioning earlier couldn't even come in. And the Clarencetown dock is perhaps, and that's on the ocean side, that's the dock that takes a lot of the heavy traffic. So I think there should be some dredging in that harbor to allow for larger boats to come in with greater ease. Mr. Deputy, we're also looking forward to being able to get some parks, some green spaces on the island. You know, I'm going to install two Wi-Fi. I'm going to put two Wi-Fi, solarized Wi-Fi installations that were purchased from the constituency fund at the Salt Pond Park. And I want to thank the Long Islanders Association for being generous and allowing me to use that site, as well as the Clarencetown Park. Now those installations will provide light, but also free Wi-Fi to anyone using the park. We only call these places parks, but these are not really parks. It's just an open space that, in the case of Clarencetown, is used for sports. And since Garden Hills is here, Garden Hills, I need you, my brother, to assist me with some of that, with the sporting facilities in Long Island. Millis, the park in Millis is due some serious work. You know, that is where we play softball and baseball. So it's important that there's some work there in Clarencetown. You know, the kids go there for the annual track and field races and other events. We would like to have that park, brought up to park, lighting, proper bleachers, a decent Mundu track, and other facilities. We don't have any decent sporting facility in Long Island. And you know, I don't mean to sound greedy, but South Andrews got a gymnasium, so we want one too. Okay? We'll take it all. Huh?
Prime Minister has grant borrows in the various family.
That's right.
Doing sporting facilities.
That's right. So we
Send grant
so
from, you know,
come down to Long Island.
Long Island.
We like a gym too, okay? We like the gym on Long Island, anywhere on Long Island, once it's on Long Island.
You'll be here now.
And so, Mr. Deputy, in closing, sadly in this budget here, we see
6 minutes plus 5 breaks.
we see the promise and the prospect of more taxes, or should I say fees? Which one is a better word? Or should I say levies?
Yes.
We see threats on collections. We see more bureaucratic red tape. And we see more difficult to do business initiatives. And Mr. Deputy, with those few words, Long Island rests.
Thank you, Honorable Member. As many? The chair recognizes the Honorable Member for Garden Hills.
Long Island Parks right now. Prime Minister's in the front row, so.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Speaker. Mr. Deputy Speaker,
Hannibal still team is on.
just, Mr. Deputy Speaker, just as the wind sometimes appears to hollow, whisper, or even scream with emotions, our messages are perceived differently depending on the way we use rhythm in our tunes. I'll say that again. Just as the wind sometimes appears to hollow and whisper or scream with emotions, our messages are perceived differently depending on the way we use rhythm in our voices. It is indeed an honor and privilege to be the voice for the great people in the Garden Hills constituency. It's because of them I am able to stand in this honorable house. I will never forget that I work on their behalf and the level of trust they have in me. Mr. Deputy Speaker, the 2023-24 budget is a budget for security and progress. It is the government's commitment to strengthen national security, economic security, personal safety, and security. With the government taking this holistic approach to improve the lives of all Bahamians, I am pleased to announce that the equitable development approach in Garden Hills constituency has fostered community spirit that creates a sense of belonging, a sense of place, and sense of self-worth. These new integrated methods further promotes a strong economy and quality of life for all the residents. Building local communities is the only way to ensure that everyone prospers together. In Garden Hills, we are able to achieve this goal through our many programs, like the Loyalty Advanced Program, also known as the LAMP program. All residents are given access to affordable health care through this life-changing program that's made available by the Doctors Hospital. LAMP reduces the out-of-pocket costs and outpatient and inpatient care service. offers free preventative and wellness care benefits and provides supplement to existing coverage and affordable primary coverage and unsecured. Mr. Deputy Speaker, I have many testimonies on how successful this affordable health care plan has assisted the residents of the Garden Hills community. Mr. Deputy Speaker, death always comes like a thief in the night.
Yes.
This unexpected act can be difficult to process, but even more burdensome if the finances are not in place. To assist the residents and relieve the strain that's associated with death, we have implemented the Burial Society program. This program is very popular and growing in numbers. I invite persons to enroll so that they can get the financial assistance needed to underwrite the costs associated with funerals. Mr. Deputy Speaker, I use this time to express heartfelt condolences to those in the Garden Hills constituency. We all know that death is no easy pill to swallow, and we have all felt the sting it has left behind.
Impressed, Hans. I'm impressed in your taste in music.
To a grieving family, a short, heartfelt message, a kind gesture, a floral or fruit arrangement attached with a card goes a very long way. During the sensitivity time, members of my MB Cares unit and myself visit the bereaved families to convey our deepest sympathy and offer their support. In my prayers are the families of Lazario Ferguson, Jerome Hanna, Dorothy Hanna, Sherry Burrows, Willard Hamilton Sr., Sibylline Sanders, and Spence Johnson. But, Mr. Deputy Speaker, I will be remiss if I did not extend condolences to my own family on the passing of my brother, Patrick Boleg. May his soul rest in peace. Yes. I extend get well wishes to the sick and the shut-in the various communities, especially Eloise Gilcott and members of the Curtis and Simmons family. Mr. Deputy Speaker, we are honored to honor the oldest mother in each of the 12 polling divisions in the Garden Hills constituency during the month of May on Mother's Day. A Mother's Day luncheon was held at the Christ King Parish Hall. More than 150 mothers attended these festivities, which included a sip and paint. This coming Saturday, we will host the Father's Day to an annual grill and chill on the Garden Hills Park in Garden Hills number 2 between the hours of 4 and 7 p.m. And Mr. Deputy Speaker, I would like to take this opportunity right here and now to wish each member of Parliament, each father in the Garden Hills constituency, and of course, the fathers in the Ministry of Youth, Sports and Culture, and by large extension, the fathers in the Commonwealth of the Bahamas, a happy Father's Day. Mr. Deputy Speaker, our Labor of Love program is still going strong, as well as our school tours, where we visit the various schools in the constituency and shower those teachers with love. We have commended our free breakfast program for students within the Bozian Town and Knowles Drive area. This initiative was in conjunction with the Life Changes Ministries Church. And Mr. Deputy Speaker, I am so happy that this government will be putting on a national breakfast feeding program that will assist all of us as constituents and members of Parliament and all of the young people within the Commonwealth of the Bahamas. Mr. Deputy Speaker, those are just few of the programs and events that were held in my constituency over the past few months. I now turn my attention to the ministry where I stand today on an eminent shoulders of former Minister of Youth, Sports and Culture, who for decades have endorsed and sponsored innovative initiatives to holistically develop youth between the ages of 16 and 25 years through sporting, culture, and youth activities. Mr. Deputy Speaker, some 46 years later, after being established in July 1977, this ministry overarching mandate has consistently and intentionally remained unchanged. My ministry's mandate then and now is to make fundamental investments in the lives of our youth. This investment in youth should not only be quantified in the millions spent on subventions, events, and infrastructure to advance youth in their numerous pursuits. This investment should rather be measured by the yardstick of transformations of the thousands of lives that has been capsulated from marginalized communities and obscure backgrounds to national and international prominence. Mr. Deputy Speaker, my mandate as Minister of Youth, Sports and Culture is sacred. One, and must, was a sacred one, and must not be taken lightly. Because of the well-being of our nation, our youth weighs in the balance. As Minister, I pledge to broaden and not diminish youth access to life-changing opportunities, to create and not destroy avenues to invest in the lives of youth, build bridges, not diversions, to the future for our youth, provide opportunities and not obstacles for youthful legacies to evolve. Yes. Develop and maintain fair and not discriminating policies to benefit all youth. Seek to uplift and not obstruct people and policies. Promote and not deny the participation of young people in decision-making and physical responsibility, where judicially expend and oversee government funds for the benefit of public and not private interests. Mr. Deputy Speaker, I now turn my attention on focus on the investment of youth through the vision of youth. The power of youth is the common wealth for the entire world. I'll say that again. The power of youth is a commonwealth for the entire world. The face of young people are the faces of our past, our present, and our future. Amen. No segment in the society can match the power of idealism, enthusiasm, and courage of the young people. Mr. Deputy Speaker, those words by Indian activist Kalisha Sityathas ring true now more than ever. The task is ours to harness that power that lies within our youth in order that we might see about securing the future of this nation and indeed the world. Amen. For generations to come. Mr. Deputy Speaker, the Division of Youth serve as the premier youth development agency in our country. As I would have indicated before, the division serve as the respiratory where facilitation, creation, enhancements, and implementation takes place on a national scale. We always hasten to place a huge emphasis on our partnerships, as this is the lifeblood of all the outstanding work that is done. The acronym TEAM, team, is true. Together, everyone achieves more. Yes. And this is the secret sauce that accounts for the long-standing success of the Division of Youth. So at this time, I would like to make it my pleasure to say salute all the partners the sister ministries and agencies, every stakeholder and vendor, and every youth organization, and hands make light work. And your support certainly help us to meet achieve, and in many instances, exceed our goals and take what we thought was impossible and daunting and move it into a space of possibility. For that, on behalf of the grateful ministry and its young people, we say a great big thank you. Mr. Deputy Speaker, I wish to begin the heart of my contribution by tooting the Bahamas National Youth Guard, which is now in phase 2 and nearing phase 3 of the 4-phase program. An investment of some over $320,000 has been made into this program, which directly touches nearly 70 young persons from 10 of our islands. The Bahamas National Youth Guard is historic, and all Bahamians are to be very proud of this initiative. This Davis-led administration is committed to the development, enhancement, advancement of our young people, and this program is just one example of that commitment. The Youth Guard program will ensure that we have generations of young Bahamians who are trained and equipped to be able to assist the country in the event of a national disaster or emergency. Members of the Youth Guard have already begun to immerse themselves by participating in Disaster Preparedness Month that was held in May. They were actively taking part in various seminars and workshops in the area of disaster management, which continues the ongoing training that forms a part of the mandate of the program. Mr. Deputy Speaker, members of the Youth Guard are now at the internship phase of the program. All across our islands are working with our partners, and as referenced at the beginning of this contribution of youth, we say thank you to NEMA, the DRA, Bahamas National Trust, Bahamas Power and Light, Bahamas Red Cross, BAMSI, ZNS, local government offices, and any and all agencies that have welcomed our young people into their establishments. Mr. Deputy Speaker, the 2023 Atlantic hurricane season is upon us, and it gives me great pleasure to formally announce that the Bahamas National Youth Guard stands ready to assist this country.
Yes. It's a new day.
The future of the Guard program is bright, and the 2023-2024 budget provides for expansion so we can look forward to a new cohort over the next fiscal year. More information will be provided on the dates of the recruitment, intake, and training exercise. It is important, Mr. Deputy Speaker, to mark these historic times. So I go on record to congratulate all members of the inaugural Bahamas National Youth Guard program. This is a fulfillment of the mandate of the blueprint, which states that we will launch an aggressive campaign to empower Bahamians and create an environment where every Bahamian can thrive. Blueprint of Change, page 15.4. So said, so done. Mr. Deputy Speaker, I am also happy to announce that I was present at the inaugural graduation where those youth guard put on a performance as if they were the Royal Bahamas Police Force or the Royal Bahamas Defense Force Band. Yes. They performed so well that I'm advised that they too will be a part of the independence celebration in Grand Bahama and will be partaking of that performance. Mr. Deputy Speaker, I now turn my attention to something that has been missing in this country for such a long time, 50 plus years, the National Youth Policy.
Yes.
This is a policy that has a very rich and long-standing history dating back from the late 80s. And now, I take this opportunity to applaud the former Youth Policy Task Force for their tireless work that was done from 2006 to 2014, when the first draft of the National Youth Policy was presented to the nation and even to this honorable House. We owe the task force a debt of gratitude for the draft youth policy on which we now stand. Mr. Deputy Speaker, the ironic thing is this draft was placed in the public domain, and every Caribbean country used the Bahamas draft to create their own, and they have all implemented theirs, and we have yet to do so. But that's the past. Yesterday is dead and gone, and tomorrow's out of sight. So today, we will make what needs to happen, happen. Just to provide some context, the National Youth Policy provides a common and mutual understanding of the importance of youth development among stakeholders and individuals in the Bahamas, and to set guidelines for the delivery of service and programs related to their development through a cross-sectoral and integrated approach. The National Youth Policy serves to facilitate the development of an enabling environment for young people in the Bahamas and to ensure that they reach the most favorable potential towards their growth. Specifically, Mr. Deputy Speaker, the National Youth Policy seeks to define a common workplace and vision for youth development in the Bahamas, to articulate the roles and responsibilities of young people and youth workers, and to guarantee their personal and national development as model citizens. Mr. Deputy Speaker, to ensure the effective implementation of the National Youth Policy and to create an enabling environment for youth development in the Bahamas, the adoption of this policy must be accompanied by the necessary supplementary institutional framework to support and oversee the process. This supplementary framework consists of a compendium of pro-youth legislation, namely, first, a National Youth Commission Act, which provides for statutory empowered National Youth Commission to replace the present National Youth Advisory Council, whose role would include the implementation of policies, programs, and projects consistent with the National Youth Policy, the regular assessment of National Youth Policy, reviewing and recommending youth-friendly legislation, and advising the government on all matters relating to young people, which will empower the youth to develop their potential for national development. The second piece of legislation is the Bahamas National Youth Council Act, providing for a statutorily empowered and formally recognized National Youth Council, whose role will include regulation and coordination of activities and initiatives relating to youth being undertaken by youth groups, youth-focused community-based organizations, non-governmental organizations, civic and society movements, and other organizations, liaising with other organizations to ensure the youth gain access to resources and services appropriate to their needs and promoting the popularizing the National Youth Policy and their policies that affect youth. Thirdly, Mr. Deputy Speaker, a National Institute for the Youth Development Act will be proposed. This is a statutorily empowered corporation with an objective of undertaking advanced study and applied research in the field of youth-related activities, and to function as a research agency for youth programs, policies, implementations, and strategies. The Institute would also function as a center of documentation, information, and publication pertaining to youth development, and provides institutional training for the personal work in the field of youth work. Finally, the National Youth Development Endowment Trust Fund Act will be proposed. This is a statutory empowered endowment trust fund for the purpose of facilitating the establishment of prototype youth development centers and other social facilities and programs to promote the physical, moral, and intellectual enhancement of youth in this Bahamas. Its purpose should also include provision for market service for youth products and services and linkages to micro, small, and medium youth enterprises with large enterprises. These are exciting and celebratory times, and I am pleased to notify that I have already met with the Youth Policy Task Force team that will lead the charge of conducting an in-depth review of the draft youth policy. This task force will conduct a practical, in-person, and theoretical research, work to identify the gaps. As stated earlier, this bill was laid in this House before, under the former Prime Minister, Mr. Perry Gladstone Christie. You all know what happened. The election came, the bill died, them other fellas had it, nothing happened. That's why I can put it forward now. I got much more time. I with you.
Glad you support it.
I don't know.
The chair recognizes the honorable member for Marco City.
Yeah, Mr. Deputy, just so the member was going so well, you know, we've been very supportive of the initiatives that the Ministry of Youth, Sports and Culture has brought forth or continued. But for the sake of completeness, Mr. Deputy, the youth policy has been the youth policy discussion, and the delivery of the first youth policy kit is more than 20 years old. In fact, Mr. Deputy, I was the youth spokesperson for the 52 Commonwealth countries, traveling annually multiple times to London, in order to engage in discussions around the youth policy. But I'm just saying, it's more than 25 years. So this issue of the legislation just being laid, I'm saying it has straddled multiple PLP administrations before the legislation, while it was in its initial draft, and it's been advanced. So this, you know, multiple administrations have shared responsibility and not bringing it here.
Yeah, Mr. Marco City, yeah, I did say it was from the 80s, but it never tabled in this House until under the last Perry Christie administration. That's the first time. That's the first time it was tabled. Yeah.
Them fellas down. Them fellas down. Them fellas down. Where's it now?
It's now in all state. It's in good hands.
Hey, I like that. I like that. Good hands now. That's results.
Mr. Deputy Speaker, it gives me great pleasure to announce that we will present an updated national youth policy to this honorable House, along with the accompanying legislations in October of this year, to be debated by this honorable House as we celebrate National Youth Month in the 50th anniversary of our country independence. What Claire say? Just results. Just results. Yeah, just results. Mr. Deputy Speaker, youth work is alive and well in our country and on all cylinders are operating at a maximum capacity since the COVID-19 pandemic over the 22-23 fiscal year. We have conducted 3 cycles of youth leaders certification program, 2 in Grand Bahama and 1 in New Providence, with our family islands having virtual access to the training. And now, I am pleased to announce that our Grand Bahama office will fully serve the Northern Bahamas, which includes Abaco, Bimini, and the Berry Islands, with the provision of in-person youth leaders certification, simulcast training opportunities. This ensures the standardization of the delivery of the training of youth leaders and equalizing the services delivered to our young people on national level. This program also assists in the formulation of basic concepts, reading the role of youth organization in the country. We are happy to have successfully concluded 2 cohorts of the Job Ready program in New Providence and Grand Bahama. We look forward to exploring opportunities for expansion of these programs to a number of the family islands. The long-standing Fresh Start program is still going and growing very strong, and a cohort is nearing conclusion. As we speak, young people are being prepared for sustainable future in the workforce, and this Davis-led administration is doing all it can to provide the necessary investment in our young people. After a period of skills training and internship, we are confident that our soon-to-be graduated of the Fresh Start program will enjoy a fruitful rewards of a long-term employment and make positive contributions to our society. Mr. Deputy Speaker, we also look forward to the new cohort of the Be Inspired program, where we will provide micro-grants to eligible young Bahamians between the age of 18 and 35. Over the next fiscal year, the delivery and coordination of youth programs will provide for the empowerment and skills enhancement of our young people in new and innovative ways, even as we seek to have more family islands inclusion engagement. Mr. Deputy Speaker, we are pleased to formally announce that the Ministry's National Summer Employment Program will be held July 3rd through 28th of this year, where again we will provide positive engagement and activities for young people during the summer break by providing a safe and positive environment, targeting personal interests, skills development, and healthy social interactions. The Division of Youth facilitates 5 separate components for the National Summer Employment Program. These components include our summer camps, apprentice programs, corporate Bahamas placement, private summer grants, and family island grants. Mr. Deputy Speaker, the National Youth Month for 2023 will be a celebratory one, like no other, as we will take the opportunity to recognize and highlight the contributions and accomplishments of our young people. October, as we are all aware, is the month that is set aside for recognition in the margins of the country's 50th anniversary of independence. The Division of Youth will certainly take the celebrations to the next level as we celebrate young people all across the country in a grand style. Mr. Deputy Speaker, I now move my focus on the investments through youth through the Division of Sports. To be the jewel of the Caribbean is one thing, but to be the envy of the world means that you're in a league on your own. This current status was given to the Bahamas because of this country's impeccable record of hosting major sporting events, the caliber of our athletes who continues to represent us at the highest level and wear the national colors with pride. Our organizational structure extending from sporting bodies, local organization committees, and support, and many contributions given from the many stakeholders. Much can be said about an administration that lends support, but even more will be said about this Davis-led government that makes the necessary investment. It is this government's goal to change the local landscape of sports and be a part of the forever evolving global industry that's emerging. Mr. Deputy Speaker, as a young man growing up, I was taught that charity begins at home and ends abroad. Before we welcome the world to our shores, we must highlight and promote our own. No better way of doing so than to host a multi-sport event, our very own Olympic-style games, the 6th edition of the Bahama Games. These games will be held July 7th through 15, 2023, under the theme, Chances are Challenges for the Courageous. Which island will reign supreme? Will it be Bimini on the Berry Islands, Andros,
Yes, Andres.
Exuma,
Andres and Exuma.
Elutra, Abaco, Grand Bahama,
Now who we could be on?
Cat Island, Michael, San Salvador, or New Providence? More than 3,000 athletes have confirmed their participation.
Wow, that's awesome.
3,000.
3,000.
And are all set to represent their islands of birth or descendants in battle for a friendly competition.
Yeah, it'll be good.
The venues for the 9-day competition includes the National Thomas A. Robinson Stadium, the Betty Kenning Kelly Aquatic Center, the Kendall Isaac, Donald Davis, and C.I. Gibson Gymnasium, the National Tennis Center, the Bankers Field, Andre Rogers Baseball Stadium, Roscoe Davies Field, and Montague Beach for the optic sailing and sloop sailing. The Athletes Village are Super Club Breezes and Courtyard Marriott. A cafeteria will also be made available and will be open to all participants, which includes officials and volunteers. The opening ceremony will be held on the 8th of July, 2023 at 6:30 p.m. at the National Thomas A. Robinson Stadium. And I invite all Bahamians to come out and experience what true culture is and who we are as a Bahamian. As it is said before, these are our islands, our nation, our games. The Bahama Games Secretariat is putting the finishing touches on the Golden Jubilee Celebration Games. The patrons for this year's games are the Right Honorable Perry Christie, former Prime Minister and National Track and Field athlete, and Mrs. Beverly Wallace Whitfield, a sports enthusiast and philanthropist. We've also identified the chancellors, Mr. Craig Flowers and Dr. William Thompson. All of our honorees would have played a role during the inaugural Bahama Games in 1989. We saw it fitting, after a 22 years hiatus, to recognize their many contributions to nation building and sports in the country. The investment by the government of the Bahamas has a direct impact on the country. It lends to a healthier nation and to a wider pool of people from which to pick the champions of the future. $3 million has been invested thus far for the Bahama Games, and an additional $1.2 million has been allocated in this year's budget to ensure successful hosting. Many will look at the numbers, but no amount can be placed on unifying a country. Even though we are separate by waters, the Bahama Games is the link that is needed to fasten the chain of islands. This is why sports is the most powerful vehicle, and it provides inspiration, hope, uplifts during difficult times. 22 years is a long time, and much has changed between 2001 to now. In order to host these games, the necessary infrastructure had to be in place. That meant upgrades to facilities here in the capital as well as the Family Islands. Back then, venues only needed to be fans-friendly. Now, the venues have to be viewership ready. Broadcasting is a major part of the evolution of sports, and we here in the Bahamas will not be behind the 8 ball. The projected budget will help secure airfare, accommodations, meals, ground transportation, insurance for athletes. These games aren't just for athletes, coaches, Family Island sports councils, and officials. Sports and business share attributions which enable success. Planning, execution, implementation, and partnership. Thanks to the national flag carrier Bahamas Air and Western Air and their continued partnership, our athletes and other officials will be flown to the capital. Corporate Bahamas and small businesses will also benefit through marketing, promotion, and sponsorship. As a country, we pledge to be united through love and service. With that being said, I would like to thank the more than 600 volunteers who have signed up to assist with the execution of these games. For those who are interested and want to get involved, I invite you to contact the Bahama Games Secretariat Office, 322-1029, 322-1029, or information at thebahamasgames.org. Local businesses, if you haven't done so as yet, to register with the Bahama Games Secretariat and become a part of the festivities. Another way you can be a part of this historic game is by attending the various sporting events. Ticket prices for the game starts as low as $5. There are also family package and all-day passes for sale. The ticket box office is expected to be open in a few days. We want the public to know that all-day sessions will be free. All-day sessions will be free. So you're invited to come out and cheer on the Family Island of your choice. Mr. Deputy Speaker, during the summer month, there will be a variety of employment opportunities afforded by the ministry, with the goal being to provide various types of experiences. My ministry will be supporting satellite camps that focuses on different sporting disciplines throughout the country. These camps will provide expert training to children and employment opportunities. To more young Bahamians, 12 satellite camps have been identified in New Providence, 4 in Freeport, Grand Bahama, 3 in Abaco, 2 in Bimini, and 1 in San Salvador. Camps will also be held in Andros, Eleuthera, and Long Island. We have invested some $90,000 for these satellite camps. In addition to supporting local satellite camps, the Department of Sports will host a 2-week program starting from July 17th of this year. 8 sporting disciplines, inclusive of basketball, baseball, volleyball, tennis, boxing, soccer, softball, and learn to swim at the South Beach Pool, will be offered. A showcase will be held highlighting the skills taught over the 2 weeks period. The qualified members of the staff of the Department of Sports will supervise the 2-week camp. Campers enrolled into the 2-week sporting camp will automatically be enrolled into the Sports Hub, a new initiative that will be launched by the Department of Sports in September of 2023. The Academy will provide support to those student athletes enlisted into the program. The Sports Academy will take on a grassroots approach, where young Bahamians from all walks of life can be empowered through sports, bringing about positive and social changes. This program will also be executed in Grand Bahama as well as the Family Islands. Mr. Deputy Speaker, the ministry wants to create opportunities for young Bahamians to learn and develop skills which will help them to advance in the business of sports. The Career in Sports Internship Program, with acronym CSI, will provide opportunities for high school and college students to gain knowledge and experience in the workplace, which will assist them along their journey. To some, the experience gained will provide inspiration to enter into a new field of study. To others, the program may solidify interest in their current area of study and provide clear understanding of the workplace and what is needed to be successful. I think Central Grand Bahamas sent that over here. Every participant will have a different but positive learning experience which can be interjected and utilized in their studies and newly formed career path. Apart from getting the work experience, the interns will collect a weekly salary. Some $70,000 is allocated for the successful execution of the CSI program. You see, Mr. Deputy Speaker, once again, we paying the youth so that they could be empowered. That's this Davis-led administration. You know, God is good. Mr. Deputy Speaker, on the heels of the Bahama Games and Summer Employment Program is the Carifta Triathlon Championships, which will be held the 26th through the 27th of August, 2023. 29 Caribbean countries will participate in the Carifta Triathlon Championships. The staging of this international event demonstrates once again the country's diverse capabilities of hosting any major sporting event. It is also solidifies the prowess of this small but mighty country. I must commend the Bahamas Triathlon Association for their preparation being done to host these championships. It is a great opportunity to showcase the sport to the public, the Bahamian public, and the Bahamian sporting excellence to the Caribbean region once again. The government of the Bahamas is in partnership with the BTA and has committed to financially supporting the event at a tune of some $75,000. The executive members of the BTA Association will transform the Goodmans Bay area. The picturesque backdrop is perfect for the swimming segment. Cyclists will then jump on their bicycles and head west into the Cable Beach area. After a grueling but beautiful ride, these young and future Olympians will run a mile to the finish. This is another Sports in Paradise initiative, which I encourage local vendors to be a part of. Interested persons, whether you want to assist as a volunteer, contact Ms. Laura Roach at 376-0062, 376-0062, or the Ministry of Youth, Sports, and Culture, and we will be more than willing to direct you. It is my hope to have Bahamians fill the Goodman's Bay Park and line the streets to cheer on members of Team Bahamas and visitors alike. Mr. Deputy Speaker, no other Caribbean country within this region, no other Caribbean country within this region can boast about winning 5 consecutive titles, and no other Caribbean swim titles, and no other Caribbean country can say that they have won 8 championships. In fact, the Bahamas will be the only Caribbean country that can proudly say they have 2 Olympic-sized swimming pools. Our swimmers are making a splash, Mr. Deputy Speaker. Big splash. So it is only fitting that we equip them with the tools they need so they can make waves. But 18 months ago, they said they're riding the wave with Brave. So we are making more waves. Mr. Deputy Speaker, the government of the Bahamas is committed to putting, Mr. Marco City, I want you to hear me. Leave him alone, St. Barnabas. Let him listen to this. The government of the Bahamas is committed to putting an Olympic-sized pool in Freeport, Grand Bahama. Yeah. No. Don't worry about that. That's coming. Next week, my deputy will talk about that. Thank you. So don't jump the gun. Let's stay in the spirit. The government of the Bahamas is committed to putting an Olympic-sized pool in Freeport, Grand Bahama. Because of this investment, Grand Bahama will be able to compete at home and host major international meets. Here in the capital, upgrades will be done to the Betty Kelly Kenny Aquatic Center, which is a part of the preparation and process for the 2024 Carifta Swimming Championships. This will be another major investment by the government of the Bahamas. The Davis-led administration is committed to putting the necessary infrastructure in place that's needed to promote sports and stimulate the Grand Bahama economy. Mr. Deputy Speaker, I want them to understand. We decided to put my good colleague who was here after from Pine Ridge. We had a conversation. And I said, you know what? There's no attraction in Grand Bahama. That's facts. They would agree with me. But what we think it's sustained tourism attraction in Grand Bahama is if we put the infrastructure. And they say if you build it, they will come. And so we believe by building and putting this Olympic-sized pool in Grand Bahama, we will be able to track all of those NCAA schools and schools from Canada and the far cities that in the cold time they could come to the Bahamas, train, sports tourism. We're going to finish that GB complex and continue to bring more people to the shores of Grand Bahama. It's just results. Just results. What's Marco City? What's the?
The chair recognizes the honorable member for Marco City.
Mr. Deputy, I just want. Are you finished on the pool, or you have more you want to say on the pool?
I have more.
Okay, let me pause.
But if I don't have the budget before me, but if you look in the ministry, under the Ministry of Finance, you will see the funding that is there for the pool.
Yes, it's there.
Which is roughly 700,000.
Yeah.
So look in it, find it. Look in the Ministry of Finance, under the Ministry of Finance. Don't take too long, because I ain't gonna be up here much longer.
The chair recognizes the honorable member for Marco City.
Thank you very much. As I've said, we have a former Olympian, Mr. Deputy, on our side. Listening at home, we have another Olympian on our side. We're committed to taking a bipartisan approach on these kinds of matters because we understand the value of culture and sports, et cetera. It would be regrettable if the minister forfeits an opportunity to benefit from commitments already made in terms of the transformation of the GB complex. As I've communicated to your ministry on numerous occasions, the Grand Bahama Port Authority, no less than, and we are on the public record, Sarah St. George committed while I was in the chair $1 million to the 50-meter swimming pool. That is resources committed by the Grand Bahama Port Authority, and it is my hope that in addition to the $700,000, because I would be extremely surprised if $700,000 can get you to the finish line with a 50-meter swimming pool. It is my recommendation that you approach the Grand Bahama Port Authority so that they can consummate the relationship if it has not already been consummated. But we support the build-out of the GB complex.
This is called co-branding, that's not, co-branding.
Nothing to do with co-branding. It was a contribution.
You want to make sure that you were there, made sure that you made it happen, you were the chair, so you got the $1 million.
Mr.
Honorable members, order.
Mr. Deputy Speaker, I hear Marco City, and we are quite aware of the commitments that were made in the past. I have it on file. The file is still there, the Ministry of Youth, Sports and Culture. And please note that we know that there will be a PPP involved in finishing this project. Yeah. But back to the people in Grand Bahama.
Thank you. Let's get back to them.
You will see more events taking place in the second city.
That's right.
This on top of the major international events that were held there over the year. I brought you the NACAC champions. I brought you the island relays. And all of you all were happy.
That's right.
This minister, this administration, this prime minister, we care. We care for you. We are bringing the wave in the north.
That's right.
This prime minister is committed to putting the magic back into the second city.
Magic is
The
back.
ministry is ready to lead the charge.
Yes, sir.
So, get ready, Grand Bahama. Let's go.
Get ready. Yeah, we coming, Grand Bahama. We coming. The way we coming, Grand Bahama.
Mr. Deputy Speaker, this David-led administration will also assist with the Goodwill swim team that is traveling to Kingston, Jamaica in August to compete. That team will travel on board the national flag carrier Bahamas Air, and the financial assistance was pegged at some $50,000. Madam Speaker, Mr. Deputy Speaker, sorry, the year 2024 will also be the year the Bahamas welcome back home the world. Everyone knows that the Bahamas is the home of the world relays. Athletics, or track and field, as we know it, is the preeminent sport in one of the world's greatest sporting spectacles, the Summer Olympic Games. The Bahamas is a heavy hitter in track and field. Only the previous administration did not realize how powerful of a punch this small country throw. The previous administration canceled the World Relays, denying opportunities for our athletes and economic injection to the country. I am here to tell you that my Prime Minister, your Prime Minister, Mr. Philip Brave Davis, brought our things back home. Mr. Deputy Speaker, in May of 2024, this great country of ours will be one of the stops to the road to Paris. Listen to what I'm going to say.
We listening, Minister. Come on.
Every country that has a relay team that would like to compete in the 2024 Summer Olympic Games will be here in the Bahamas. Let me say that again. Mr. Deputy Speaker, World Athletics made it mandatory that if you want to qualify for the Olympics, you got to come to the Bahamas. You got to, or else you can't go Paris. So this is the road stop to Paris. So, Mr. Deputy Speaker, you can imagine the amount of media from around the world, the publicity and exposure that we can bring to this little island of ours.
Right here.
Look at that.
Right ahead of the Olympics, oh my God.
You can't even pay for it.
You working, sir. Just results. Just results.
Well, and you know what? Let me say something else. The track, the brand, the new brand of track they intend to put in Paris, the first one is going to be put right here in the Bahamas. The first one. So we're going to be putting on a brand new track. So all of the athletes going to get the first time to taste this new track in the Bahamas before they go Paris. It's all because we care, and it's just about results.
City, you love that. Yeah, yeah.
Just results.
You support it. Thank you. Thank you.
Just results.
No price tag should be placed on such an event of this magnitude, because the marketing value and the return will be much greater than the dollar value invested by this government of the Bahamas. You can't pay for it, Marco City. It is a price tag, but it's not. It still wouldn't be the value of the results. The Bahamas, its athletes and people, will be on full display all over the world in the months leading up to hosting this event. The rhythmic sound of Jonkanu, the introductions of teams into the stadium, and the colorful backdrop, and the awarding medals immediately after the events were initially done in the Bahamas, then hosted the first 3 editions of the meet, 2014, 2015, and 2017. The other countries adopted this approach. This confirms that the Bahamas, as the world leader in track and field. Another perfect exchange was the first prize, which set the bar for others to follow. Mr. Deputy Speaker, the National Sports Policy was last updated in 2011. Since then, the sporting landscape has evolved numerous of times. It is important that we amend the sports policy to better reflect how sports in the Bahamas should be regulated. We must look to include benefits such as medical and pension for our elite athletes, and federations for our elite athletes, as well as a possible increase to payments for athletes and federations. All of this will be discussed by the stakeholders at the National Conclave in September of this year. In Central Grand Bahama, I expect you to be there. Sports.
We appreciate you, Central Grand Bahamas.
Sports involves seasons. With that in mind, the Department of Sports has created a sports model that will provide more insight to the ever-changing demographics of sports. My ministry will launch the first season of Life After Sports Transition, better known as LAS. You know, we think about these things. A program focused on the importance of planning and preparing for the transition all athletes must take.
Very good, very powerful.
These lessons must be learned as early as possible, as every athlete's journey is different, and it is never too early to plan ahead.
That's right.
The first season is designed to educate our collegiate student athletes on the importance of saving and investing, medical care, and legal assistance. These topics are important for young athletes to develop the right mindset so they can not only manage their careers, but begin planning for their careers after sports. Our training, education, coaching, and healthy lifestyle will be better known as TECH. This program will offer young participants an opportunity to learn more about a particular sport, their specific rules, how to officiate the game, the importance of having a balanced meal, and coaching. The program will work in partnership with various federations and associations. At the end of the 3-month course, the participants will receive local certification and will be in position to assist when needed. The program will be taught virtually so persons in the family islands can also participate. Mr. Deputy Speaker, the Learn to Swim program is set to return at the South Beach pools. As access to the pools are limited, many young Bahamians grow up not knowing how to swim. Swimming is not only about being competitive, but being confident in your abilities while in water. The after-school program will be launched in February of 2024 and will run for 6 months. It will be open to all Bahamians. These are all new initiatives that will be implemented this year and will tie in with our successful programs that's under my ministry's banner. Mr. Deputy Speaker, the ministry is now speaking just as the Ministry of Education with more than 20 NCAA and NAIA colleges, with the hopes to invite them all down in the month of October for a college fair. The college fair is important for high school student athletes interested in attending and competing at the collegiate level. This will let them connect and gain important advice from college representatives. Mr. Deputy Speaker, the month of November is National Sports Month, and this year, the ministry is expecting to introduce new programs and events for this important year in our country's history. As it is important to develop plans for the future, it is also important to recognize and celebrate the accomplishments of the past. Plans are underway for the hosting of the Hall of Fame inductee ceremony and the return of National Sports Awards. There are also plans to host a celebrity golf tournament where locals can play with our recognized athletes from this year's Hall of Fame and National Sports Awards. More details will be forthcoming on this event. Mr. Deputy Speaker, as you are aware, the qualifying window for the 2024 Olympic is open, and there are many Bahamians who are in pole position to advance through the qualification rounds. The various qualification events include the Central American Caribbean CAC Games in June, the FINA World Championships in July, the World Championships and Pan American Games in late October. My ministry will lend financial and moral support to all federations and national teams as their quest to Paris begins. Mr. Deputy Speaker, in order to develop sports and continue to host major international competitions. Facilities must be at the high standard. The investment made into facilities upgrades have been plentiful, and it will allow the Bahamas to make even bigger strides in sports. We have seen tremendous improvements in New Providence and will now turn our attention to upgrading the facilities in the Family Islands. New softball and baseball fields is presently being built in Cat Island. Those aren't the only sporting facilities that will be constructed in Cat Island. The island will also have a new track and field facility and new basketball courts. Exuma, Abaco, Andres, Elutra, you're on the list too. Long Island, we did not forget about you. The upgrades to the facilities in the Family Islands will be done in phases. Those islands with existing facilities will see improvements in phase 1, and those islands in need of new facilities will be done in the latter phase. I would have mentioned Grand Bahama and the plans to have the Magic return to the second city. The upgrades to the Grand Bahama Sporting Complex is top priority for this Davis-led administration. Improvements will be done to the complex and other existing fields. The Grand Bahama sports teams, led by the Deputy Director, Mr. Norris Bain, will also have new sporting and educational programs. Student athletes, as well as professional and elite athletes, will have the option to train right at home. That's what the Davis administration is all about. We are presently now in negotiation with some private partners to ensure that we get that JB complex up to standard. Mr. Deputy Speaker, as you can see, sports is on the move. As I would have indicated in the opening, the Bahamas is the envy of the world, and we will continue to be the shining jewel.
Yes.
Mr. Deputy Speaker, I now turn my attention to the investment in youth through the Division of Culture. The mission of the Department of Culture is to enable a vibrant Bahamian culture that celebrates, preserves, promotes, and stimulates cultural expression, heritage, and economy, and community life. In each fiscal year, the Division of Culture implements programs, workshops, events, and other opportunities to support our cultural practitioners of culture and, in the process, produce new entrepreneurs. It is our passionate mandate to change the face of the cultural sector by investing in more supportive, dynamic, inclusive initiatives. Mr. Deputy Speaker, culture enables citizens to identify who they are. It is a human right for a citizen to experience and participate in the culture of their country. A country's culture identified consists of shared core values, shared beliefs, shared attitudes, and shared behaviors and practices of a people. Every country must be concerned about its national and international identity and must always invest in its people, its agents of culture. Whether consciously or unconsciously, when people travel, they take their culture with them, and the world recognizes and applauds our citizens. To gain the world's applause, we must be intentionally in honing, promoting, and funding our culture brand to ensure that our culture brand is never tinted or diminished by the negative prevailing influences. Mr. Deputy Speaker, this 2023-2024 budget will allow the Division of Culture to provide additional opportunities for culture exposure, further strengthen capacities with the culture framework, build stronger skill levels and widen knowledge bases, provide more economic opportunities for all creatives, recognize and celebrate our cultural icons, as one is in the place, Mr. King. Well, Francis, Francis, we got a lot of valleys in here, but I didn't,
No,
but.
Saxon's here. Only couple Valley in here.
Valley is
Saxon's
in
here.
here. You are correct.
Three misguided valleys in here.
Yeah,
Well, okay.
only three.
We will,
Joe Bad.
we will continue to broaden the national educational platform to highlight those values that make up the cultural national identity. Mr. Deputy Speaker, the E. Clement Bethel National Arts Festival, the Bahamas' only cultural festival held in almost every island and key, has just finished and was once again well received by residents in each island. Over 3,000 persons participated and displayed their talents. In the upcoming months, there will be more performing opportunities for these participants through performances, exposure, and training workshops. The National Junkanoo Development Program saw the return to face-to-face Junkanoo to majority of the islands, with Abaco Senior Junkanoo Parade being held last week. The Junkanoo season runs from December to June, and there will be an increase on focus on strengthening the capacity to do Junkanoo and increase the standard in the family islands through workshops. Performing and fine art workshops will be held throughout the year to assist the launch of the national performing arts work by helping to build the skills level and knowledge-based capacity for cultural practitioners. Year-round cultural events will help to provide economic and performance opportunities for these include the Culture Under the Stars, a performance opportunity for up-and-coming stars, artists. Culture in the Park, community-based events proposed to bring persons together to support each other. Independence Heritage Event, events focus on cultural heritage. National Cultural Heritage Month events, celebrations of practitioners of music, dance, fashion, visual arts, culinary arts, and film. There will also be an increase in cultural presence and promotion in the Bahamian society through television and radio programs, and the social media platforms on cultural topics and educate. Inform and celebrate culture practitioners such as the Bahamian Dialogue Series. In addition to art exhibitions, visual arts education will be facilitated through the creation of community art murals that promote and reflect a cultural topic. After school and summer cultural arts programs will continue to be conducted, with one specifically designed for males to expose young people to the arts. A cultural expo will be held to educate on the importance of culture to the society and inform and inspire those who may want to make culture their career. Mr. Deputy Speaker, all of these programs are ways to strengthen the cultural sector, which in long term will benefit the people of the Bahamas by informing the national cultural identity. Our culture determines who we are as a people. This Davis-led administration will do all what it needs to preserve, promote, and support our cultural heritage. You will see more in this 50th anniversary celebration as we move into the next 50 years as a nation. Through the Division of Youth, the Department of Sports, the Cultural Affairs Division, my ministry, through its youth initiatives, cater to some 34.7% of the country's total population. Youth are the foundation of our nation, and as such, comprise the primary building blocks that activates its development. Through innovation and energy, history supports the view that an investment in our youth is an investment in the sustainability of our nation. Through the divisions of sports and cultures, the targeted population and stakeholders more than double that of the youth division, whose influence targets more than just our youth. Together, they reach a large cross-section of people through their collective responsibilities and scope. Together, these three divisions within my ministry cater to all Bahamians, the young and the young at heart, the apprentice and the entrepreneur, the creatives and the recruits, the sporting giants and the enthusiasts. The expansive reach of my ministry is undeniable. With so much at stake and with the lives of so many constituents in the balance, my ministry cannot afford to fail. I want to thank this Davis-led administration for reposing their trust in me to lead such a ministry. I want to thank this Davis-led administration for its investments of millions in existing and new initiatives. I want to thank this Davis-led administration for their moral and social endorsement in ensuring success of the Ministry of Youth, Sports, and Culture. May God continue to bless my ministry, and may God continue to bless the Commonwealth of the Bahamas. God Nils supports this budget.
Thank you, Honorable Member. The chair recognizes the Honorable Member for Central Grand Bahama.
Thank you. They'll continue. Yeah, my successor, yeah, I'm proud of my successor. He's doing a good job. Keep continuing on with the programs. Question. Sorry, not a question, sorry, a comment. You advised that, sorry, it's not controversial. During your presentation, you advised that other countries use our framework to develop their policies, and they have already implemented their policies. I'm wondering if our team, you advised that you would present the paper in October, if our team will visit those countries, since they piggyback off of our policy and use it to form their policy, will we now visit them and find out what works in their country so that we can ensure that our policy is tight and we'll have as little gaps as possible? That's one. Number two, with respect to the Bahamas Games, as a former athlete, qualifying as early as possible is extremely important to any athlete. We have the Olympic Games next year, 2024, in Paris. Will the Bahamas game be sanctioned by international federation, particularly in track and field? No, I'll tell you why. Particularly in track and field, I believe it was done before. Allow me.
Can you quickly wrap up?
Yeah,
because,
allow me.
Question.
Track and field and track and field and swimming, because what happened, you allow the athletes to qualify early. It happened before in the past where the record was recognized. Yep. It happened in the past. So I'm wondering if thought was given where some pressure could be taken off the athletes, because you will give them another opportunity, and the best of the best will certainly be home to compete. So again, it's a question that I thought about when I was, and I'm wondering if it is on the table now.
Let me take the second question and go back to the first question. All international sporting bodies has identified the Bahamas Games as one of them. It's the major game within the Bahamas. As you would have heard if you on the radio this morning, that we had to drop bodybuilding and weightlifting from the Bahama Games because they were suspended internationally. And because they were suspended internationally, they could not compete in the Bahama Games. And so therefore, the reason we are having track and field the last 3 days of the Bahama Games, because the Beaches will use that as their national tryout for their competition for the Olympics also. And so these games are not just games and the Bahamas will be playing. But the international world is looking at us and is expecting us. We also will have the anti-doping and all involved in the Bahama Games as if this was an international competition. As relates to the national youth policy, I would have said it earlier that I would have met with the leader of the task force, who they will do all their research and go wherever they have to go to ensure that we are upgraded and on par where we need to be and meet the needs of the young people in this day and time, so that when we pass this, we don't need to look back at it again. Ms. Wells, I can't remember her first name right now. She's a Wells. She's a Wells. Yeah, can't remember the first name right now.
Thank you, Honorable Member. The chair recognizes the Honorable Member for St. Barnabas.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy. The Honorable Member, you and I have spoken about this before. I have been a proponent for, you mentioned the Hall of Fame ceremony. I've been a long proponent for a physical Hall of Fame building that has the ability to bring in income, but most importantly, being able to put our athletes and all of those persons who are in the Hall of Fame, to put them on display. I'll just say very recently, the leader and I visited Ray Minus's family's home. And of course, naturally, they have a shrine, as they should, to Ray Minus. But these are things that can be in a physical building. And so I would encourage the government to truly look at it so that we could begin the process. It's something we need in our country, not only for us, but the ability for it could be income producing. Tourists can see our athletes on full display.
And for that, which I would agree with you, is that as we continue to upgrade these present facilities, you would discover, if you come in the ministry, about Marco City and Central Grand Bahama, but no, we had all the plaques of the Hall of Fames lying in the ministry and nobody could see it. And so the intent is, once we finish the upgrades of these facility, Kendall Isaac Gymnasium, we will take all the basketball players out there and hang them in the gymnasium so people could see. We will do with the track, we'll put them in the Thomas A. Robinson, the baseball, we'll put them in the Andre Rogers. So we will be moving all of those plaques out of the ministry, so in the short term until we get that building, so that when people enter those facilities, they will see our Hall of Fames. Hall of Famers.
Thank you, Honorable Member. The chair recognizes the Honorable Member for West Grand Bahama and
Why
Bimini.
the Walk of Fame was created, also leading to the direction which you spoke about. So it eventually will be there because it does make sense.
It's nothing like the member.
No, fully understood, fully understood, fully understood.
Do the design now when we do
How's that? Yeah, that's serious. We should put that in the category of wishful thinking. Mr. Deputy, we now move for the suspension for the House to resume on Monday, June 19th at 10 a.m. with the member for Exuma, and Ragged Island will be in the chair.
Is there a seconder? It has been moved and seconded that the business of the House be suspended to 19th of June, 2023 at 10 a.m. As many as are in favor will remain seated. Those opposed will stand. The motion is carried. The business of the House stands suspended to the 19th of June, 2023 at 10 a.m.
All right.
You already have it, yeah, sure. The letter.